being a calisthenics athlete, if you skip legs a lot of the time, I don't think that necessarily means you're gonna have more chance of knee arthritis.
What's your message and what's the goal that you're trying to achieve with people?
The goal is,
it's not about training, it's about the stresses of your daily life.
being right or wrong is not more important than being kind. Like, the wrongest you can be is to be a jerk thinking that you're right.
Calisthenics athletes, now you know.
Our guest today is Ben Patrick, aka 𝘵𝑠�ＯverToesGuy. Ben is a leading fitness figure known for his unique, highly effective training methods that have transformed thousands of lives. His approach helps people alleviate pain, boost their physical abilities, and reach their full potential. As the founder of ATG and author, Ben leads a global network of coaches teaching his methods around the world. He is definitely someone you'll want to hear as he shares his game-changing insights.
All right, Ben, welcome to the podcast. It is truly an honor. It is truly an honor to be sitting here with you in a kneeling position, and you are in a squat position if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, or just sitting on the floor, because sitting on the floor has many benefits. Thank you so much for hosting me at your studio at the ATG headquarters here at Clearwater. And I'm 100% confident that the whole audience will truly, truly benefit from all the information that you are about to share. No pressure,
Hopefully.
though. No pressure. So, welcome again to the podcast, and let's begin. So, the first question that I want to get is the cornerstone, the pillar, the main exercise, the exercise that actually got you out of painkillers, and that we just did in the workout, and my legs are still burning, and they're going to be super sore tomorrow. That's going to be the sled. So, I know they can go to your page and find a lot of information, so I don't want to go too much in depth. But briefly, for those that are not aware of your system, what is a sled? What are the main benefits? And the following question would be, does everybody need to sled?
Okay, good. So I'll start with, not everyone needs to sled.
I love it.
Yeah, no one really needs to, but it is, in my opinion, the most advantageous for someone who thinks they have bad knees to start strengthening the knees. So to me, it's the most advantageous starting point. Mm-hmm. It's not what quote unquote bulletproofs the knee. So the very nature of what makes it so great to start also makes it not as potent for long-term protecting the knee. And that's because the weight is the resistance of the ground. Yes. So the weight's not bearing down on your shoulders. The weight's not bearing down on your knee. So let's imagine that you have a metal sled. Okay. They could look like Santa's sleigh or whatever. You have a metal sled on the ground, and let's say you put 10,000 pounds on it. Mm-hmm. And now you attach a belt to your waist, and you hook up to the sled, and you try to move it. Well, it's not going to move. Correct. But you're going to be fine. Now let's say we reduce it down to something that you can comfortably walk backward with. All right, boom. Now you're doing a knee strengthening exercise, but in a way that it's just a lot harder to hurt yourself. So, I mean, you could answer it as well as I could, because yesterday your mom came in here and I saw on Instagram that she was doing the sled. So that's the whole point, is that, I mean, my mom's 70. We regularly train grandparents. They can walk right in. They can start sledding. And not just start an exercise, but they're huffing and puffing and they're feeling the legs burning. And when you're someone who's had knee surgery, and some people have gone years, they've never been able to get the muscles really burning. They've never been able to get into an athletic position. Mm-hmm. So it's like so hard to get into an athletic position. And then they find the sled, and they do it, and they do it, and then they can get into more athletic positions. And from there, now you could get into deeper strengthening. So the deeper strengthening is what's going to protect you more long term. Like a deep squat with resistance would have more protective benefits for the knee than a sled. But for someone for someone who's had major knee problems, they often just cringe even to look at these deep positions. So hopefully that kind of explains for someone out there that, no, it's not a one exercise that does everything. The nature of it is it's a very great starting exercise, a great warm-up exercise, but then you're going to want to progress to deeper exercises for more protection.
Okay. So you basically use it as a warm-up, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you do this every single day, including rest days. So how do you approach an exercise every single day? How do you manage the intensity? For how long do you do it? That's it.
we've tested all kinds of amounts of it. Number one, as you progress to deeper exercises, I found you don't have to do it anymore.
Okay.
But I like to keep it in the system. Like I like to stay true to my roots. So when I walk in the gym, I mean, we worked out, boom, we started on the sled. It stays true to my roots. Maybe you keep in certain, like a row might be easy for you, but you keep in a row.
Yes, I keep doing it.
You keep doing a row as like a fundamental. So I keep doing the sled. Now, I currently train mainly 2 days a week during the week. And then my weekend is like my competition. I play basketball with my friends. If I want to lift heavier, whatever I want to push hard, I do that on the weekend, and I do 2 workouts during the week. So I found that even doing the sled a couple times a week, you're still going to feel a ton of great benefits. But for the person who overdoes it, I found that, well, you want to do sled every day, provided you do some form of stretching after. But like compared to other methods, I've seen people who tend to overdo it on their body win with the sled, even if they want to do it every day. Now I would say every other day is plenty. 2 times a week I think is a good minimum for someone to really feel the effects.
Okay, got it. Now, let's switch gears to let's stay with the sled for now. What would be the sled of the upper body if you have to choose an exercise that creates almost the same effect? Correct me if I'm wrong, I would see the elbows as my knees, and I would see my shoulders as my hips. Very differently, mechanics, but we could make that correlation per se.
Definitely.
So what would be the backward sledding or the forward sledding of the upper body for the elbows and shoulders?
Yeah, that's a good question. So first off, yes, the knee would be most similar to the elbow, but I see a big difference in the upper body versus the lower body. So look at your average day in life, you're on your legs many hours, walking around.
Correct.
The legs are like the horse to me. Like the legs are the workhorse. They do simple work repeatedly. Then the upper body, like if we were out in the jungle, look at the lower body and the upper body. The upper body we would rely on for survival, very like dexterity, power, throwing, climbing, but we wouldn't necessarily be like climbing for hours, hanging for hours. You would have certain moments. The legs would be used for more volume. So I do see a difference there in the sense that the sled, it allows you to give the legs some of this like boring work to help heal the legs, to help strengthen the legs. The upper body, I don't think you need as much a quote-unquote sled for the upper body. However, if I had to pick the closest thing, it would probably be someone using like a rice bucket to strengthen from the with the sled you're pushing through the foot. So like the resistance is not bearing down on you. So if I had to pick the most similar thing, it might be someone using a rice bucket to get the forearm muscles pumping. That's the most similar thing I could think of. But I don't think, there's also just general practicality. So like theoretically, if you were doing a handstand and you like hooked up to a sled and like pushed your body backward, but the problem with that is that it's just not practical. And like the body, think how much harder it is. How much harder is it to walk on your hands than your feet?
Yeah, I mean we can do it with like feet supported, because I thought about it. I was like, okay, what can this be? That's what I'm asking you. Maybe being in a pike position with the sled back and just doing this.
There would be some similarities.
There would be some similarities as well.
Even a band would have some similarities. Like today you're doing a drill with a band where it's like, let's say theoretically the band had 1,000 pounds of tension. Well, you would try to pull the band, it just wouldn't move.
Yes.
So that's kind of what the sled allows you to work hard even if you're fragile. So for the upper body, you would really just find anything. All right, the person has elbow pain, shoulder pain, fragile quote unquote upper body. How can they work hard? Rather than just rest. So that rather than just saying, okay, your knee hurts, you have to rest. that there's value in that. But what about if your knee hurts for 5 years? What about if you've had 5 knee surgeries and you want to get some ability in your knee? So the sled can be a breakthrough to get some ability going. You got to get some work going. So anything that could get the shoulders and the elbows to get some work going, but in a safe manner, that would be the equivalent of the sled to me.
Okay.
So
Makes sense. Now,
even rows would have some similarity, because if you pull, you just don't make it all the way out.
correct.
Like a row, you're less likely to hurt yourself than a press. Like a press, you could, like a dip, the person could start, and you go down, and it could hurt. But a row, if you start, and you go to pull up, and you don't get all the way up, so what? It's not like, oh, I hurt my shoulder because I didn't make it all the way up.
Correct.
So I think really anything where you can work hard, if you can work the body hard with super low chance of injury, I think that's similar.
So what if, back to the question of, does everybody need to sled? In your system, would you see it as such a key piece that people shouldn't avoid? Or there are some type of people that just can get away with not doing it? Let's say I don't have a sled, I don't have the space. I know we can modify with bands and whatnot, but how important, and I know it's very important, but how important it is, and can people skip it and still have very robust and healthy longevity legs?
Yeah, absolutely. And even from a body weight perspective, you can kind of mimic the sled. Like my best-selling program, Knee Ability 0, I'm just trying to mimic the positions that the foot and the leg are going to be in with the sled, and then get high repetition rather than like going to maximum loads.
Okay.
So the sled is a convenience. It makes it very simple, easy. Like we're all able to do it. We don't have to learn a lot of technicalities. So if you don't have a sled, I think you're still fine. You're just going to have to study a bit harder and maybe go a little bit more patiently. Whereas the sled, usually from the first session, you can just be burning, going super hard. Like it's harder to hurt yourself. So now if you're doing body weight or load-bearing exercises, it's easier to hurt yourself. So you got to become more of a master of the subject. But yeah, if you told me, Ben, there's a ban on sleds, you're never going to be able to use a sled again, I wouldn't blink. I can get the exact same result. I just have to know the subject a bit better.
So that same exact result would be walking backwards. Walking backwards on a hill, walking backwards with your treadmill that has resistance. What's the difference between just walking backwards with resistance or in a hill versus a sled?
Yeah. If you just walk backwards, a lot of people get results out of that, but there's not as much resistance. So the extent of those results is probably not going to extend as far to like a sport where you have much more intensity. So the more intensity, the more you're going to want some load when you're going backward, some resistance.
Okay.
So a hill could provide resistance, but you still have to come back down the hill, which is then more stressful on the knees.
Correct.
So I would encourage people when they do the hill, go up the hill, come back down very slowly. Like make yourself actually work on the way down. Don't just plop, plop, plop on the way down. And I really think it's as simple though as like if you don't have a sled, I mean, my number one selling product is just a backward treadmill. So it's a resisted treadmill. Okay. So people can get the effects of sled. Like at home, you could have an apartment, you could have a resisted treadmill.
Okay.
If you don't have a sled and you don't want to get a resisted treadmill, then just take more patience learning the rest of the exercises. You'll be fine.
Okay. And can you turn off the treadmill and just work with that resistance? Like a normal treadmill.
Gym owners are mad at me about that, but usually if you go on like a treadmill, a normal treadmill, and you don't turn it on, it has some resistance to spin the belt. And so if you put a towel around the handle, put your butt against the towel, and spin it backward, you can usually get a burn, like doing backward slide.
Yeah, like I went to Naples the other day, and I saw like 3-4 people walking backwards. Oh, wow. And I was like, yes, like this is good. This is what we should be doing. So if somebody has knee pain, not debilitating knee pain, but just normal knee pain, and wants to heal, but he's like, or he or she, I don't want to walk backwards. I don't want to do the sled.
That's okay.
That's okay, right?
Yep. Just take your time more learning the further progressions.
Yeah.
There's more to be gained, but there's more risk because you're going to have more stress. Stress is not a bad thing. It just means it's going to take time to adapt. So it's probably like in calisthenics, you could probably find similar things where it's like if I told you, oh, you can't do this exercise ever, well, you could find ways around that.
Yes.
Certain ones might be easier to start. Certain ones might be safer to start. But it doesn't mean that someone couldn't take more patience on further stuff.
Yeah, it's like you could get pull-ups by just doing hanging, doing negatives, which are very demanding, and top holds and banded pull-ups. And the combination of all that might lead you to the pull-up. But why not using rows, since it's an easier exercise, very friendly on the joints if you do it with rings? Why not build it up that way? And that's one of the many reasons why most calisthenics athletes are very, very injured, is because they do not respect that progression. So I would see skipping the sled, I would see it as like skipping a progression, even though it's not a progression for the ATG split squat, for example, but it's like, why wouldn't you? You know what I mean?
Especially if you're in, like, let's say someone just is not pursuing elite calisthenics, they could probably do less total exercises. If someone's pursuing elite calisthenics, they might want to be smarter about the support work. So if someone's had major knee problems, if someone's in a sport with super high chance of knee surgery, you're going to want all the abilities you can get there.
100%.
Like you showed some drills today that I did, and it was like, that's going to build more ability. Like the more demands you're going to have on your upper body, or the more problems you have with your upper body, the more you want to become a master of that and use your different tools. However, neither of us is going to sit here and say, you cannot succeed if you don't do this drill. It's not an absolute viewpoint. It's tools.
Yes.
It's tools. Learn the different. I mean, I can build something without a hammer and a nail, but I mean, it's like different tools are going to do the job better or worse for different things.
So that's what I love about you, is that you have a system with very specific exercises that work for sure, but you are not close to those exercises, and you don't see them as mandatory. Even the sled, which you do every single day and you swear by it, and it's probably exercise that actually really got you out of painkillers. Let's move on to the next one, which will be, correct me if I'm wrong, the ATG split squat would be your second favorite.
Yeah.
Can somebody get away by just doing deep squats and that's it?
Yeah, exactly. It's a great way to work on a deep squat one side at a time.
Yeah.
Which, if you've had a lot of knee problems, so sometimes like people say, oh, just deep squat. I love deep squats.
Yeah.
However, my knees were so different from injuries, it didn't feel right to just deep squat on two legs, because one knee super stiff with surgeries, the other knee super loose because it had tears that I didn't have surgery. So I had like two completely different knees. So for me, ATG split squat, one side at a time, that worked really well. And then the more I did that, the better deep squats felt. So to this day, like my two main workouts per week, one I focus ATG split squat, one I focus deep squat. So it's not even like, which one's better? Don't care. I do them both. I enjoy them both. If someone is, doesn't want to do the ATG split squat, that's fine. Deep squat. You can do couch stretch. There's other ways. You can do long lunge hold. There's great ways to get the hip flexors flexible. So someone could even have a system different than mine that gets the exact same results as mine.
Which, if you had to summarize in one sentence, what's your message and what's the goal that you're trying to achieve with people?
Yeah. The goal is less fear and more ability of your knee to go over your toes, and more ability of the knee to bend below 90 degrees, which were the two things really found. Like, it was found 50 years ago, when your knee goes over your toes, there's more pressure on your knee.
Yes.
So like the conclusion from that, this was not a study that said it was bad, it just found more pressure. So the conclusion of that was, okay, don't let your knees over your toes. Don't bend the knee below 90 degrees. So my system is basically, without working through any pain, let's get good at those. Let's get good at knees over toes.
Yes.
Let's get good at full bend. Never work through pain in the process. So it's totally understandable how those conclusions came about. They didn't know what we know now. Now we know that muscle is not the only thing that can adapt and strengthen. Connective tissue, like a tendon is a form of connective tissue. Tendon holds muscles to bones. Ligaments hold bones to bones. These are forms of connective tissue. They can also grow and strengthen, but slower than muscle tissue, not as large as muscle tissue. However, pound for pound, they are stronger than muscle tissue. So, so for us, we found by addressing knees over toes and bending below 90 degrees, we've unexpectedly become able to jump higher, able to land without our knees hurting, things that rely on the connective tissue, things that rely on the springs. So yeah, if you wanted to improve the springs of your body and you avoid the connective tissue, per the science, to only address the muscle tissue, which we also address the muscle tissue, but if you tried intentionally to avoid the connective tissue, it would just be kind of harder to get that spring-like factor.
I feel you. So I have two questions in terms of like the pressure of the knee. So the first one is, more pressure, we get more resilient joints, per se.
If it doesn't kill us, exactly.
If it doesn't kill us. So you use the ATG squats to create a lot of pressure in front of the knee, if I'm correctly,
exactly.
and you use the Nordic curl to create the pressure behind the knee.
That's right, yep. Or a hamstring curl is another example.
Or a hamstring curl, like a regular hamstring curl.
Right, hamstring curl machine is fantastic.
But it doesn't get the same pressure.
Nordic, on the way down, you have a lot of pressure. Yeah. So on a hamstring curl machine, it would be kind of like having a friend back there pulling it down. This is good.
Makes sense.
It's good to know both. However, I've been training at home for most of the last 5 years. And even before that, I was training teams. Like 20, 30 guys would come in the gym. I didn't have enough money to buy hamstring curl machines for everybody. Okay. So I could get a bunch of Nordic benches.
Okay.
We would elevate the front of the Nordic bench so that anyone could work at a pain-free level. So we would manipulate the leverage of the Nordic, raise up the front end. So the Nordic, you have a very powerful exercise to like create adaptation in the connective tissue behind the knee. Hamstring curl machine, much more advantageous to get started. But again, you have the practicality. Do you have access to a hamstring curl machine? So it's the same thing. Someone doesn't have to have a hamstring curl machine. Someone doesn't have to have a Nordic. You would still have to learn how do you create adaptation, work at appropriate levels, slow and steady. So it's all tools. Sled is a tool, body weight is a tool, hamstring curl machine tool, Nordic is a tool.
So I haven't trained legs in a long time because I'm focusing on other goals. And my hamstrings are particularly, I would say, my weakest area. Would you put me in the lowest progression of a Nordic curl, or would you prepare my body with hamstring curls, machines, maybe some RDLs, get some muscle mass, and then go to Nordic? Because more pressure, yes, equals more resilient. I want to go back to that point later, but it also, it's riskier per se, quote unquote.
Yep. I mean, first off, my Nordic bench, I make it elevates so much that my mom is 70, it's her favorite exercise.
Yes.
But if it was only flat, it would not be her favorite exercise. So the angle of the bench matters a lot. So now it's never been easier. On average, I program like 2 sets of 5 reps once a week. You elevate whatever you need, you get in the little adaptation, you gradually adapt. However, if you have access to a hamstring curl machine, I'd pick the hamstring curl machine.
Okay.
So like for you, if you had access to a hamstring curl machine, I'd use it. If you had access to a back extension machine, I'd probably use it. Hamstring curl machine, back extension machine, I think of as a bit gentler. And then Nordic and full stretch Romanian deadlift, you can cause more adaptation, but you know, it's going to be more intense. So if you do want to do those, that's fine. Just be a little more patient learning it.
I got it.
So it all works. And if you look at my program, I just do all 4. So I just patiently do, okay, one workout hamstring curl machine, next workout Nordic, and each workout I would do the knee flexion, hamstring curl Nordic, and I would also do the hip extension, back extension, or RDL. There you go, done. Like there's my routine for life. You could have fun with the sets and reps, but there's my hamstring routine for life.
Yeah, we'll talk about reps and sets in a bit. But about the pressure, at this point I really want to get it home. We know more pressure equals more resilient. Is that something that you got from studies? Or is that something that you got from pure logic?
I have to be honest, I've never actually changed anything about how I train
based on studies.
On a study, ever. Sometimes it's useful data to see, but I've learned I don't even mention any studies on social media anymore. Like I'll tell you a really good study they did recently. It was more like a survey, and they found that people who work out have more chance of knee arthritis. However, the people who work out who are in the top third of lower limb muscle mass did not have increased risk of arthritis. Okay. In other words, you got muscle in your legs, then you have a better chance of not having knee arthritis. If you only build the upper body and don't build the legs, but you work out, then you have more chance of knee arthritis.
Calisthenics athletes, now you know, we're gonna train legs. So you're saying that the pressure equals more resilient knee. It's a matter of like pure logic
I think so.
that you believe it's gonna be on the textbooks 5-10 years from now. And do you think
Maybe never. It depends who's writing the textbook.
that's 100% and who funded too?
Yeah, like I wouldn't rely on the academic system for the data. And even that study, I think someone could probably pick apart the study I just mentioned. Because I think what you're looking at there is you're looking at people who go to the gym and work out. Like probably people who do legs, but don't do legs through a full range of motion.
Yes.
They probably don't build as much lower leg muscle mass. So meaning a calisthenics athlete, if you skip legs a lot of the time,
Thank you.
I don't think that necessarily means you're going to have more chance of knee arthritis.
Okay.
If you did some in moderation. You see the difference there? Like
Yes.
if someone is going to the gym, training legs really hard, but only through partial range of motion, I think that's where the increased risk of knee arthritis is coming from. But you see where the study, again, it wouldn't change anything for me. You're in a deep squat right now. I think it's more about someone fully exercising the lower body, not how often they do it, not how much they do it, not how big the muscles are, just that they fully use it. I think it's the person who's only stopping at a certain range and never fully using the knees. I personally believe that's what's creating the increased risk. So it wouldn't be. It's such a good question you ask, because I realized it the other day. I was like, wow, like looking at my programs, I've never changed a single set or rep or exercise or anything. I've never done anything differently based on a study ever. I'm just done with that world.
Yeah, I'm the same. I think studies are a very valuable tool. It's like a sneak peek or something that we can get something from. But I think nothing is going to be experienced on your own and the people that you coach. And you've coached thousands of people, and you've seen that it works.
Yeah.
So why would you change your mind based on a study that says, and there is no such study, but that going below 90 degrees will blow your knees?
Yeah.
So there is no data that shows that more pressure on the knee equals stronger joints and connective tissue around the joint.
I mean, the conclusion, they looked at over 100 research papers, and they found that doing deeper range of motion actually protects the knee better, preserves the knee better.
Okay.
Deep squats do not contribute increased risk of injury to passive tissues. In fact, they're an effective lower body strength exercise, effective to prevent injury, and the internal structures last longer and stay stronger if you exercise deep squats. This is from a study, direct from a study. I keep the study linked in my phone when people ask me. They say, there's no studies on this. Actually, the research concluded that deep squats protect the knee better.
Yeah. I'll put it on the show caption below.
Yeah, I'll put the link right there. They can look at the quotes exactly. But people were already training with more range of motion 50 years ago.
Yes.
70s, 80s. So that's where
So when did we go wrong?
I think the problem is when you value the study more than your own common sense.
I'm 100% with you there.
I think an argument could be made that studies have made exercise science worse than better.
In a way, I would argue. Yeah, I would agree with
Make a
that.
short clip from. You can put this on your YouTube, but don't make a short clip and put this on Instagram.
Because they will take it out of context. Yeah.
For me, my conclusion is, in any field in life, whether it's politics or whether it's medical or whether it's academia, you do have a lot of good people trying to produce good results. But you also, when you enter in other factors, when people can profit on manipulation, it gets very confusing. And we know that studies throughout different subjects have often been manipulated. And with a study, you still have to conclude what to think about the study. And so sometimes the study can be misleading. Sometimes it can be more confusing. So
Or not applicable to your current situation.
yeah. So that's why my personal conclusion is that your own common sense, learning anatomy, learn physics if you want, learn what is.
Yes.
Learn what is, and I don't actually believe you ever need a study when it comes to exercise. Maybe some other fields, yeah. When it comes to exercise, my personal belief, is that studies in academia have worsened exercise, not made it better. I mean, in the field of knees, that's proven by studies. Like, studies prove that studies made the field of knees worse. So I think it's a reasonable argument that studies have made exercise science worse, not better.
Okay.
So that's my conclusion. I never need to look at a study again. I never need to. I challenge myself in any video. I never try to use a study anymore to try to prove my point, to try to make myself right. Even if juicy ones come out, like a bunch have come out recently.
I was going to ask you that.
Fuller range of motion works better. I mean, Arnold was doing fuller range of motion pullovers, fuller range of motion squats, and they were doing it to extremes as well. But nonetheless, this was already how people train before studies got involved. So it's almost like studies getting involved made people train less scientifically, because now they're finding out that how people naturally trained was more scientific than how the study. I mean, it's a mind.
Or they go way too scientific and they just take it to the extreme and they don't take the time to actually learn about their body. So it's like, okay, hypertrophy, 10 to 20 sets per muscle group. But you just have 3 kids, you are running a business, and by 10 sets, you are dead. So it's like, what? And there is this new study that says that 52 sets are the sweet spot, or like you can get there. So it's like, for some people, 5 sets will be enough. For other people, 25 sets will be enough. For other people, even 5 sets will crush them, depending on the stage of their life. So I think a good message to drive home is that we need to experiment. We need to be our own coaches. Despite of how many reps and sets and the programs that you give, and the same that I do, I give a big range. It's like 3 to 5 sets, 6 to 12 reps, and with a certain RER, and I explain how to modify them so they are their own coaches. And obviously, it's a hard work to explain, because if you give people too many options, they get paralyzed. So it's like, start on the lower sets. If you can recover, add 1 more.
Smart.
If you cannot, then don't. But yeah, we have studies that says 10 to 20 sets for hypertrophy, and then now we got this study of about 52 sets. Then we also have the low volume group that says that 5 sets per muscle group will be more than enough. So I see, and probably you agree with me on this one, I see programming more as an art than a science.
Yeah, I agree with that.
We have some principles, but there is something to be said about how different we are, how different goals we have, and also our lives. Like, it's not about training. It's about like the stresses of your daily life. Like, yeah.
What do you enjoy? I mean, different people are going to enjoy different things. But I think you said that, yeah, I think programming is an art. I think exercise selection is more of a science, meaning if someone knows anatomy well, and you have pushing exercise, you want pulling exercise, or to use, larger range of motions, not only limited range of motions. Not even that I think limited is bad, but if you only limit, well, I think you're now ignoring just the anatomy of how the body works. So yeah, I think anatomy, know that, and find good coaches who have done it, honestly, and then experience yourself. And I don't think, yes, if studies, even there you go. That's my conclusion on studies. If you like studies, if they make training more fun for you, go for it. But I think it's important to say, if studies doesn't seem like something you need, I'm here to say, that's okay. You could be a world-class coach, get amazing results, enjoy fitness, love your life, and never look at a study in your life. You don't have to.
I have looked very, very few, and yeah, I just think that we're too different to just. And more than that, the studies might work, but exercise is pretty new. It's like, what, 100 years?
Yeah, I mean, depends what.
Like actual exercise, like bodybuilding world.
Yeah, relatively new.
Yeah, that is super new. So if the studies might be right now, but they're gonna keep changing just the way that they have keep changing over the years.
That's a great point. Yeah, like if you want, for me, like I don't really want to sit around and wait for studies to tell me what to do.
Exactly. We want to figure it out for ourselves, and we might be wrong. We'll change our mind if we were wrong. We just communicate that, but I think that's part of like evolution. Like, we cannot wait for studies that are super hard to do, by the way. Like some studies just grabbing all those people and making them do the same and get out of their daily life and controlling for all these variables. And it's like, we're so complex. I think we human beings are more complex than 10 to 20 sets per muscle group a week.
Yeah.
And that's just hypertrophy, which is the area that we have the most amount of data. Add to that flexibility, add to that longevity, or like making your knees strong and your elbows strong. We don't have data for that. We don't have a split squat test compared to a normal squat. Like, we do not. So it's in our responsibility as coaches and as athletes to just keep testing and get the most amount of anecdote that we can.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's just a good point for someone out there to realize it's, you know, if studies don't resonate with you, that's okay. Like, you can thrive even if that never existed.
More pressure on the knee equals more resilient based on logic, and it just makes sense. It just makes, and it feels like, and many people have experienced that. Can we say the same for the elbows?
I mean, I think for literally any part of your body, you need some stimulus.
Yes.
And your body has pain signals to tell you if something's too much. Mm-hmm. What do you think?
I do believe it works the same, pretty much, as long as you do it safely. So in calisthenics, we got planche leans, where we put the shoulder very, very, like, in front of the wrist, that put a lot of pressure on the front part of the elbow. Yeah. If you do it wrong, you're fucking up your joints. Yeah. If you do it progressively, you are strengthening the bicep tendon, the forearm tendons, and the whole elbow in itself. When we do a V-sit or a L-sit with external rotation and we focus on, like, leaning backwards, that's pressure on the back of the knee. So I would see, like, a V-sit as a Nordic curl, and I would see a planche lean as a ATG split squat. Very different. The arms are straight, completely different story, which will lead me to the second question. What would be for you the ATG split squat of the upper body?
Good question. I think maybe rings would be similar, because at least you have with the ring, you have some degree of one side at a time working. So I think it would have to be the rings, maybe the ring row, something like that.
So you would say the row?
Maybe,
okay. Just because you get that, bending of the elbow.
Yeah, there's different ways to look at it. Like with the split squat, if you look at it, you're going forward and then you're pushing back. So you're really still training deceleration more than acceleration. So then the Romanian deadlift would be more like acceleration maybe. And so with the upper body, it's, even though the pressing is more of extensors with the elbow, but that's more like, you would use your pressing to accelerate things, and then you would use the row to, like, decelerate the shoulder.
Makes sense.
So I think if you're looking from, like, general health, I would think of, like, ATG split squat like a basic to help protect lower body, row basic to help protect upper body. Split squat is more about the protection than, like, the explosion.
Makes sense. Okay, another thing that you get a lot of backlash on, it's VMO. And that you cannot isolate it or emphasize it. That's
a very simple answer, too.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so the VMO, like the more teardrop part by the knee, it said that you can't isolate it, and I think that's true. You can't isolate it.
Okay.
Meaning if you work, like if I come up out of the squat, I'm working not only the VMO, I'm working all of them. However, like 7 years after the study that said you can't isolate it, then another study came out saying that you could emphasize it. And like the lower you are, the more preferentially it becomes the VMO versus the rest. Now, can't for almost any muscle group, like can't you emphasize things even if you can't isolate? Like couldn't you emphasize?
100%. If I roll a little bit
you can
lower,
emphasize different parts of your shoulder.
Yeah, if I roll lower, it will be more lats than if I roll over here and I focus on retraction.
Yeah, so I think for any area, like
let me see that again. Sorry. if I pull lower without retracting, like that would emphasize the lats more than if I roll and retract my scapula. That would be more middle traps and rhomboids.
You can emphasize different parts of the shoulder. You can emphasize different parts of the chest, the back, the calves. Even you can emphasize more upper or lower. Emphasize. So people got caught up in the names of it. The amount of times people have commented on my post, you can't isolate your VMO, or other people making hater posts against me. You can't isolate the VMO. Correct. But you can emphasize it.
Can you emphasize it though?
You can emphasize it. Yes.
Is there any studies on that, or is that pure logic for you?
Exactly. For one thing, common sense. But yes, a study about 7 years after the study saying you cannot isolate it said you can emphasize it. And it was the deeper you go. So the deeper you go, the more emphasis you get of that vastus medialis. Nice. But that's why it's just like, I'm kind of sick of that academic world.
Yeah, the freaking studies,
When you attack, it's not just saying, hey, maybe you can't isolate it. No, it's saying, what a charlatan, saying this false, the amount of times I've been attacked on something that it's like, you're actually incorrect. Like I'm actually saying true data per studies, per studies.
Yeah. Even though you don't like studies,
you went
but
to college at a time that had an incorrect study that they later proved wrong.
That will probably be incorrect for years on end.
Even per your own world, you're actually incorrect, and you're not just telling me, hey, you might be incorrect. No, you're actually being a total jerk, being rude, being cruel. Being right or wrong is not more important than being kind. Like the wrongest you can be is to be a jerk thinking that you're right. Even if you really are, still be kind. You can be right and be kind. You can be wrong and be kind. It sucks when they're wrong and a jerk, which is what happens. But even if I was wrong, you can still be kind. Even if you're wrong, I'm still going to be kind to you. I'm not going to throw it back.
That's how I'm going to name this podcast. Be kind, people. Be kind. If you need to take something out of this, aside from the knee pain and all the wisdom that he's spreading, just be kind to people. And if you
still be right. You could still say your beliefs. You could still say everything.
Exactly.
But you could be kind doing it.
Stand your ground, whatever you believe, but just be kind and be empathetic to the other person.
Yep.
I eat meat and fruits. You too.
Yep.
I'm not against vegans, at all. But many vegans are against us. So it's
and the other way. I see that lots of carnivore people attack vegans. So it's whatever it is, I just don't believe in that.
Exactly. Yeah. There are many ways to go from point A to point B, and it works for different people. And it's obviously, if I see a friend of mine that is becoming pale because of the vegan diet and whatnot, and he's low energy, I'm not going to tell him, go carnivore, this will help you. I might tell you, hey, let's look at your vitamins. Maybe you're deficient in B12. How's your iron? But as a friend and as a it's an invitation. I like to invite people to do something rather than you have to do something. That's why my first question was, does everybody need to sled? And I already knew your answer, which is no. Yeah. But it's an amazing tool. We all have tools. Yeah. Now, to wrap it up, I would really like to go into reps and sets. Yeah. How do you think about reps and sets? Let's begin for a beginner that is new to your system. Do you put a standard rep that they need to go through, or is more learn the technique, we'll take it from there?
I think the technique is most important, but I think in general, not doing so many sets, not allowing the weight to get too heavy. So in general, more reps, less sets at first, and then maybe someone long-term could do more attempts at a more difficult task.
So you said more reps, less set.
I think in general for beginner.
Wouldn't that be more prone that the person loses their form?
Well, it's more like if I let someone go only 3 reps on something,
that's what
the weight can go much higher.
Okay.
So it's more like making sure the weight's not too much. Like if someone was going to learn a push-up, and if you said, all right, you're going to do 1 set until you're exhausted, or you're going to do 10 sets of 1 with as much weight as you can. That's why it's a general thing.
So how do you think about failure training in general?
I think certain exercises are safer to go near failure.
Such as?
Well, usually when you train hip flexors, let's say if you took an 𝑙 sit, it's a little bit safer to go to failure than jumping into a weighted deep squat to failure. No warm.
Yes, or a weighted dips.
Yeah. Yes, you could do a study on it. It's kind of common sense. If I said, we're going to test your max squat, no warm up to failure. Yes? Or we're going to have you do a ring row to failure. Ring row or deep squat.
Totally different.
All the way to failure. No warm-ups, all the way to failure with roughly your 5-rep maximum. Well, with the deep squat, people will be having all kinds of injuries with no warm-up, jumping right into 5. With the row, you could take almost anyone off the street and safely go to failure on a row. So that's what I think.
So for your programs, how do you, because I love the simplicity that you go into your programs. Especially in the form cues, you just give exactly what they need. And obviously, you have a huge team behind you that can actually coach them, which I think it's mandatory for preset programs. 100% mandatory. I have a private community because I cannot give you a program, no matter how customizable I make it to be, without seeing what the fuck you're doing. I want to see it because exercise it's simple, but it's also complex. And we want to make the best work possible, and seeing how they do it is the best possible thing. Now, how do you prescribe reps and sets for them? What do you say to them? Like, once you get to 10 reps, moving on. Like how do you communicate to them how many reps they should do? Because that's the most common question people ask. It's like, they don't ask about the technique, even though it's the most important thing. They ask, well, should I do 10 or should I do 12?
Yeah. I list sets and reps. I list it so they have something to go off of.
Do they have a range, or you set up like a specific 10 reps? That's it.
Depends on the exercise, but I would say in most programs, I give like up to this many reps. Like up to 20 reps, like, okay, probably a good idea to maybe add some difficulty.
Yeah, increase intensity by either range of motion or by weights.
Up to blah. That's what I use the most.
Okay.
Up to 12, up to 20.
What do you think? No, before there.
But it's not like I think that's better. It's just, it's something that gets the job done. I like the range. Once someone kind of knows what they're doing, I think the rep range is great. But I also find, a lot of people want kind of an exact number to go for.
Yes.
So that's why I think you nailed it. Programming is more of the art.
Yes. Yeah, I'm changing my programming currently because I used to do like 3 to 5 sets of 6 to 12 reps because I wanted to give them a lot of options.
I like that.
But I'm realizing that I do that for some exercises, but I'm realizing that sometimes it's like, no, 3 sets, that's it, do it. But sometimes I feel like, not guilty, but I'm like, this person would benefit from 2. And this other person would benefit from 4. But again, we got so many beginners that you don't want to make them choose, but also my mission with calisthenics is making it as simple as possible, but also make them learn. Yeah. Because it's the same stuff. Like, you teach the same stuff over and over. So even though we want people to be with us in the app, and that's why I created the community, you created the form checking, at the end of the day, it's pretty much the same exercises. So our goal, I would say, as coaches, is that they can be on their own. They can be their own coaches. Even though we're going to get less money, but it's for everybody to become their own mentor in life.
Yeah, your job still you have to really believe in what you're doing, even if it means less, strategizing on the money. Yeah, like if no one learned what they were doing, maybe it would be more, I don't know, life is taking a wrong turn at that point. Like, I agree with you. That's why we also do the form coaching. Like, I want someone to know the system and not need me. Some people stay on, some don't. I think it creates a nice kind of economic thing where, like, some people who can afford it do stay on. But then someone who can't is going to get coached, and they're going to learn it, and they're going to be fine, even if they don't stay on. It's I'd rather not get tricky about it and try to...
No, 100%. Thoughts on deload?
Deload, I mean, I've never taken like a week off since I started training because I like exercise.
Not even a light week?
Well, I think a lot of my weeks are light. So to me, it's like every workout, every exercise, I'm just enjoying it. Okay. So there's no, every single exercise I do, like you saw me do kind of like an actual real workout today. Like we did the sled, we got some burn. It wasn't like, I wasn't timing myself.
A very strong burn.
Yeah, I wasn't timing myself. Then you saw us work on the split squat. Yes. Like I got some good reps in on that. Some days I'm like, I want to go a bit heavier. Some days I'm getting the motion. It's not, there's no pressure on myself for any exercise. Every exercise.
So you don't focus on progressive overload. So sorry to interrupt you there. Yeah. Long term.
Long term, meaning like long term I'm observing like, okay, is 5 chin-ups still hard? Like I'd like to do 10. Okay. And then with certain ones I'm finding like what's a good range that I can maintain. So yeah, if we went around for every single exercise, I would show you like in my head I know what I like to be able to maintain. But it doesn't mean that every workout I'm pushing to the maximum that I can do.
Okay, so pretty much you free flow, you auto-regulate yourself based on how you feel on that session, but you make sure that if you see 5 months from now, you are doing an ATG split squat with either 10 pounds more or with a better range of motion or just a better technique overall.
In some way, shape, form, you want things to be improving. But I then think it's realistic when you've been doing any system for a while. Do you want to be world class at that ability? Like, are you chasing? For example, I really like to maintain that no problem, I can go up the bar, take my time, do 10 pull-ups, nice full range of motion, no stress about it, not having to swing around, that I can do 10. But other people have much further goals.
Yeah, they want to get to 15, 20, or they want to pull like 100 kgs.
Yeah, for my life, I much prefer finding reasonable amounts that I can maintain while being a dad and pursuing, like what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to jump higher. Like that's my fun. My fun is playing basketball and dunking, and I want to jump 2 inches higher than now. And so certain exercises, I know I might have to push a little bit more, but then really it's like on the jump itself, a lot of adaptation occurs. Like in basketball, if you can stay healthy and have no pain when you're trying to jump, you can put more force into the jump. So for me, like the jump is my one-arm chin-up where you have all that stress going in, that my training prepares me to not be in pain, to not break down, to work on the technique of that. So it's wildly different goals that someone could have. And I like to find just general marks that I can maintain.
So would you say that you have some exercises where you simply maintain, auto-regulate, not kill yourself on those exercises, but you do have these 1 or 2 goals? Probably that has changed over time because, first of all, you were in your warrior state. Right now, you're more in the king state, like taking care of your family.
Definitely.
And so it's a good idea, and this is an advice that I always also give to my students, which is you don't need to increase numbers on everything.
Yes.
You can just focus on 1 or 2 things that you really want to improve, maintain the others so you conserve energy for this thing. Because if you try to increase reps and sets on everything, then
it can work at first, but like you just got to be real about it. It's not. It would be nice if that's how it works, but I think if you believe you're going to go up 5 pounds every week on an overhead press, and you start at 50 pounds, well then you'd be pressing 310 pounds at the end of the, like you'd be breaking the world record. Like it doesn't.
Daddy.
Yes. What do you want to do, buddy? I think this is our last question.
We're almost done. Yeah. So this one should be quick. How often do you vary your routine? How often do you switch your exercises? Because I know you mentioned I train for life.
In a week, I try to do all the exercises that I want to do for life.
Okay. And how do you share that to your audience? Do you recommend variety?
I always keep a program up called Ben's Current Program, so people can.
I love that.
What I'm working on. It's not a fancy name, but they, like right now, if you can go Ben's Current Program, they can see exactly what I'm doing.
And for the average people that just got new to your program, what's a good progression for the programs, and how much do you recommend that they stay on those programs?
I mean, even just doing what I'm currently doing now is actually even great for a beginner, because that's how I treat myself. I treat myself like a beginner. I go through the progressions. I don't do anything risky in training. So by nature of that, it's like a pretty good program. I think it's more like finding someone within the ATG community that you identify with. So some people, they've just been doing what Ben's doing for years, and they've made great transformations. But then, like Fernando, who you met today, he has all of our physique programs. He does more barbell work, muscle building, different sets and reps. My mom has her exact program on the app. So yeah, if you're a 7-year-old woman, do my mom's program, not mine.
Just in 2 minutes, what's a simple routine that somebody can start doing to rehab their knees?
Yeah, I think you find some way of going backward. Do that for about 5 minutes. And then,
Not backwards in your marriage or in your business, ideally.
Yeah, just with the body. And the reality is, like right here on YouTube, right here I did live knee ability exercise routine. So I think the best answer for it is that I try not to have any secret whatsoever on social. Like anything I know, I'm trying to teach you for free.
You put it out.
Anything I know. So the best answer is go to knee ability exercise routine, scan through, and you can see live knee ability exercise routine for a variety of levels. And even then, you don't even have to watch that video. In the description is an article version. So you can literally look at pictures of everything I know about knee ability exercise routine. Then if someone wants coaching, it's $50 a month to take the time and answer. But there's no data that I know behind the paywall. That's how I like to do it.
I love it. So guys, if you want to check Knees Over Toes, please do. If I was not training calisthenics, I would literally train in the same way that he trains, because
and right back at him. I think I would be his training partner and have a blast with it. I play basketball. I've already got my ways, Yeah. It's simple.
Yeah, we'll do some upper body calisthenics movement, then we'll do some lower body calisthenics movement with you.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Love it.
So if you want to heal your knee, he's the guy, definitely. If you want to build massive legs, he's the guy. But most importantly, if you just want to train for life with the right progression, whether you are 13 years old or 70 years old, Knees Over Toes, Ben Patrick is the guy. Brother, thank you so much for hosting me at your gym. It's truly, truly, truly an honor. I'm 100% sure that the audience will really, really benefit from this conversation, and hopefully the first one of many. Appreciate you being here.
Thanks for bearing with us with the family.
I love this.
Absolutely incredible.
I
guy
love
right here. If you don't know Gabo and you're a fan online, just know, wow, like, you know, it's really cool when you meet someone like this. His girl, his family, I mean, these are incredible people. My family was here. These relationships, this is the most important thing. If you learn ATG, awesome. Learn what he knows. Enjoy learning. Eventually make your own routine, I think, is the way to do it.
And if you really want to progress, one of the most important things that you can do is just have people around you that support you, social connections, because that raises your vibration, that makes you perform better. We focus so much on food, in hydration, and we forgot that this is what really lifts us up and give us a reason to work towards it. Brother, one more time, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is she Onyx or Sapphire?
This is boy
Onyx. Onyx?
You high five?
You rock.
Good job, buddy.
There you go. Say bye to the camera. Thank you, guys. I'll see you on the next one. Much love.